Friends, this is so exciting to welcome not just incredible people, but my neighbors. I think you are the first 1840 guests in our history who I know the names of your children and you know the names of my children because you literally live next door. Welcome, Mickey and Ortal, to 1840.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Happy
much.
to be here.
Okay, so we have so much to talk about. We're exploring the relationship between the states, the diaspora, and Israel. And I was like thinking, I'm like, right next door, the couple who our kids are always at each other's houses, we're here. An Israeli couple live next door in Teaneck. And I want you to begin by just explaining to our audience where you're from in Israel, how you were raised. Let's begin with Ortal.
Okay, so I'll speak before we were married. So I grew up in Yavne and Rehovot as a totally Israeli family. I knew nothing about the outside world of Israel, nothing about English, nothing.
You didn't speak English?
No.
When did
Maybe I was in English speakers and I was very, very good in English,
Yeah.
but I couldn't relate.
Gotcha.
בכלל. I knew nothing. I couldn't understand what is it, why they have an accent, what is going on.
Did you know about American Jewry?
Nothing.
Like if I would have asked you Rav Moshe Feinstein.
No, yes, because we learned about him.
You do? Okay.
He was my final work in school.
Oh, you did like a
Yeah.
project on him?
Ken,
like a
project.
Okay.
Reb Moshe Feinstein.
But like the American, the five towns. Had you heard of the?
No, never. I knew nothing
Lakewood?
about. No, come on. No, nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I even, when I grew up a little bit more, so it's like for me, I don't even want to say it because I can't relate to that. To leave Israel was for me, it's like a chet.
Like almost like
Tum'at goyim. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to be outside of Israel.
of the Jewish state.
Okay? No?
And you grew up. You would describe your family like what community? It was like dati, like a strong.
דתי לאומי, כן.
דתי
בני עקיבא.
בני עקיבא.
אולפנה, ישיבה, ממש ככה.
And when you grew up, did you do Sheirut Leumi?
כן.
You
Two years of שירות לאומי, and then a year of מדרשה. This is very, very classy, Dossi girl. 2 years of שירות לאומי.
Dossi is the Hebrew term for religious.
Yeah, but it's not religious Haredi. It's different. It's Dossi, not Frumi. It's not Frum.
Correct.
It's different. Frumi is Frumi. We know what is Frumi.
Yeah.
Dossi, it's different.
And let me just ask you one question. When you were 18 and you went to Sheirut Leumi, was it ever a consideration to go in combat from the community you were coming from?
Yes, of course. I started there.
You started in a combat
I
unit.
started there. I got accepted to be makit, mefakadet.
She started the process. She didn't get into
The
the
process,
army.
and then
she was thinking about it.
I felt that I didn't have enough support to be as a Jewish religious girl in the tzava and to keep my boundaries.
Gotcha.
Back then, these days, I think I want my daughters to be in the army because there are much more facilities and misgarot, like institutes that can help them get ready and support them in the army.
So, and now, but when you were growing up, you didn't have that.
Not that my parents said no, but I thought it wasn't dati enough.
I think we should remember that 20 years ago, socially, it just wasn't common. The
Yeah.
amount of religious girls then going and like real religious girls staying in the army were few. It wasn't as popular.
Like, would it have been a statement to have, if you would have gone into combat back then? Would that have been like, ooh, like people would have...
Can, but that was me. I always like statements, but I thought it was still very important, the fact that I'm doing Shirut Leumi, not to take advantage and do 1 year, I had to do 2 years. Like if all the rest of the girls doing 2 years in the army, so I should do 2 years in Shirut Leumi.
I just wanted to explain to our listeners, you are Sephardic. Explain where your family is from.
David, I'm not Sephardi.
I know you-
I know you think I'm Sephardi because of my strong...
Chazak.
Yeah,
Very
but
strong.
my mom, she's Yemenite.
Yemenite.
Mamash, my savta came from Yemen.
Yeah.
And my dad, he's hardcore Ashkenazi.
Your father is a hardcore Ashkenazi.
Yeah, like Holocaust survivors
Uh-huh.
from Czechoslovakia back then. So I grew up in a very, very Ashkenazi house.
And your father was born in Czechoslovakia?
No, he was the firstborn in Israel after his parents made Aliyah.
Wow.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And your Savta was how old?
When she came here, she was probably 30, 20 plus.
The Ashkenazi one who came
Ken,
to Israel.
yeah.
You're talking
Yeah.
about.
Wow.
My Yemenite one, much, much younger.
And she was there before the establishment of the state?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Mickey, you, as our listeners will hear in a moment, you are much more naturally American. You were born to American parents, but born in Israel and raised in Israel. Tell me where your parents were from and where you grew up.
So my parents were born in America. My dad was actually born in Israel, but moved as a very young child to America and grew up his whole life here. And they were part of a movement there was a big, I think, wave of Aliyah in the 80s. And they were actually part of like a Gar'in, like a group of people who formed a community in Neve Aliza, that's in the Shomron, in Ginot Shomron. And they were like real pioneers because there was nothing there. It's a settlement, it's in the West Bank and Yudah Shomron. And they came, barren land, and they started this group. They lived in Kew Garden Hills at the time. My dad had a very active role in like a lot of technical things and logistics. And they had already my two older sisters and brother. And then they made Aliyah, and I was born a year after. So I was the first like real Tzabar who was born in Israel.
And when you were growing up, this is a loaded term now.
Right.
But when you were growing up, did you know the term like the settlers?
No, I don't think, subconsciously, I don't think I knew it. There were certain, when I look back at certain political things that were taking place, and it was, first Intifada, I was very young, and then second Intifada, I was in high school, so those were very formative years. And of course because you're listening to the news, but I never fully, I think, understood. It took much longer till I understood like the real terms, like what it means to be a mitnachel, or, that my parents made that decision and to live in mitnachel. Because you grew up there. It was natural. I grew up in an yishuv. It all seemed natural. Yeah, there's certain security incidents that happen. Okay, that's part of living in Israel. So I never thought that I was different in any way.
Mm-hmm. And growing up in Israel as kids, I'm just curious, what were your relationships like with the Arab community in Israel? Did you grow up like...
For me, zero, because obviously I grew up in a city in the center of Israel, Rehovot Yavne. Zero relation. Obviously for you it was different.
So I think, well, I always say it's very sad, because I remember... Again, there was some sort of relationship still when I was a young child. It was much more common. You would go into an Arab village to do your shopping. And that was very known. Even people talk about today in Gush Katif, you can find signs, that they went into the city of Gaza to do a tiyul. And I remember that. I remember going into Arab villages to fix your car. When I was in high school even, we still did that. Me and my friends, we wanted to buy some things or whatever. And we'd go, and let's not elaborate.
Contraband,
yeah,
sure.
Exactly. But they would work in the super, they still do, but it was much more, I think, friendlier.
Integrated.
Yeah, and every time, the situation got worse after the second Intifada, especially, it was a lot more removed, and then everybody felt a lot more scared, and then going into a village was already, you couldn't imagine, and I think that's the reality today as well. So there's a lot less of that integration.
And what your knowledge, because your parents were American, what was your knowledge? Did you have friendships and relationships with American Jews growing up?
So not really. Again, so the American, culture was a big part of my upbringing, because my parents were literally off the boat. The Neve Aliza community is a community of Olim. So English, we went to a young Israel shul. English was very common to hear there. Funny enough, I actually, for some reason, not clear to me till today, always push myself further myself from that. I actually did not want to associate myself with the Americans.
Tell me why.
I think it was...
It's not cool. It wasn't cool.
No, that's a very strong point. I think when I started, not when I was very young.
Even in my school, we had one girl that came from England.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's like, it's
for a very hardcore Israeli school back then. Even me, I remember I wasn't. So.
You're like the immigrant.
We know exactly.
What are
they?
That, why they speak like that? Why they can speak? I literally, this is what I thought to myself, which today I cannot relate at all.
But
And I'm much embarrassed because today I'm like very embracing and I'm amazing. And but back then I thought they're weird.
You know, I think there's a
like, how could it be that they don't speak Hebrew? Like
the accent.
Yeah.
Even the accent was so different.
There's a very famous skit that was done by this comedy group called Lul. You know, Arik Einstein and Uri Zohar.
Okay.
And it's back, you can find it on YouTube. And you see, they make fun. It's like about how the new Olim who get off the boat, and then they see the next Olim, and then they make fun about them, the Yemenites, about the Moroccans, and then about this, and every, you know, wave, and then the Russians, every wave, they're suddenly already the tzabar. And I think for me, I must have, again, subconsciously, when I started school, you know, you didn't want to be, they even had like the Amerikaki. That was sort of like a nickname that you would say. And I did not want to be, and that whole culture.
Tell me, what did it represent? What did you associate growing up with, I'm not going to use the technical term Amerikaki, but what did you associate with American, like an American Jewish teenager?
Again, just like the outsider. You're the outsider. You're the different one. You're maybe spoiled. I think there was also like you have money.
For sure, you are rich.
Right. There was like all these real, you know, it was very interesting. But to an extent that I remember that I was embarrassed to bring my friends over because my parents never spoke Hebrew so well, right? They with a heavy accent, and I was embarrassed to bring my Israeli friends to my house as a kid. And for me, again, when I speak Hebrew today, I don't think anybody can tell that I am.
Do not tell him he has an accent.
I spoke English.
Do not tell him that
remember,
he's not
I
Israeli.
spoke English first at home, and then only when we started, you know, in school, I spoke Hebrew. But if anybody would ever even be able to hint that I have sort of an American accent there, it'd be so insulting to me.
My favorite book growing up, and I read it to my children now. It's such a powerful book. It's a Thanksgiving book,
right?
And it's called Molly's Pilgrim, and it's about a girl who goes to school, and it's given a task that you have to make a little pilgrim doll. And her mother, who's a Jewish immigrant and has an accent in this, makes a doll of herself, not understanding that like pilgrims, the American pilgrims. And what the book is really a rumination on is like how immigrants like see difference. And we usually in America always associate that immigrant culture with coming to the United States. And we don't really see ourselves. Like, there's an arrogance, maybe. I have it, too. Like, when I'm in Israel, I'm like my culture's the right one. But Americans have a hard time with that because we set the tone for culture in every other area. So in the Jewish world, we like our Americanism kicks in. Like, we're in charge of the movies. We're in charge of television. Like,
well, I can tell you, I think also I grew up also with that concept. My parents, you know, trying to immigrate, like, you know, feel part of the Israeli society and always complaining about the differences. So that's kind of what I heard at home. But as a couple who have already traveled quite a lot, we lived in England also. We were on Shlichut. And I remember that me suddenly, again, being an immigrant, going to a new country that you don't know, and, you know, even the most simple thing becomes complicated, like opening a bank account. And I remember that frustration after like a couple of weeks. And I met this random Jewish guy, and he said, "Oh, you're from Israel? Oh, I lived in Israel for a couple of years." He starts complaining, "What a balagan, what a mess." And I was so, you know, I had all this frustration from what was going on here. I said, "Your country isn't any better." And I started explaining to him like all the bureaucracy problems. And then he said to me, you know, he suddenly like had he said, "Wow. I said, I love Israel because you get things done." And he said, "That's so interesting. For me, what is a balagan, for a British person to live in Israel, he just can't handle it. It's a mess. But if you're Israeli, you love it and you work within that system. And then when you get suddenly into a system that works in a like what's going on? Why can I just not walk in and schmooze with the teller and, you know, get things done?"
Did you guys grow up with American culture? Did you watch American TV and movies growing up?
Yeah, of course. So for me, America is the series that I used to watch. I remember that when I came here first and I saw the smoke coming out of the...
You know, in like New York City when you see smoke.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like in the movies. It's actually true. Or, you know, when I see different people here. So I think it's like in the movie. So
what are the movies? What are the key movies that you grew
Family series, you know, Full House, Family Matters, Step by Step.
Oh, so you grew up like good classic 90s sitcoms.
Every night from 7:30
Full House,
until 10,
Family Matters.
one after the other.
Urkel.
Yes. Mamash, Steve Urkel. Mamash, Ken.
But that's
I
American.
think
That
that
embodies
Hamilton-
America for her. Like for.
But this is my
I
American.
wanna
That
make-
everybody's
So
like
when
that.
I
want
come
to
here-
make T-shirts that say "Mamash Steve Urkel."
Yeah. No, but for us, for me now, it's very, very hard that my family is also, they are not so much, let's say, my parents or my mom. So it's hard that we've been living outside of Israel, not
Consecutive.
Yes, for almost 8 years.
Yeah.
And obviously, you have this process of like different cultures that you adapt things, and it's hard that they cannot understand some of the things. Now it's
Do they see change? Meaning, do your family in Israel see changes in you since you've
first
been
for
living?
my Yemenite family, I'm an embarrassment.
Why?
I'm too Ashkenazi.
You're too Ashkenazi.
For you, David, I'm for sure not.
No,
but
you
you have to understand, like, first, when we went to England, I came very arrogant as a shlicha that came to save all the Jewish people, that poor them, miskenim, they live outside of Israel. It's not dati, this is a chet. Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, this episode. No, we should make it clear. You had a baby.
Yeah, 6
Mazel
weeks
tov,
ago.
6
Thank you.
weeks ago.
Yeah, our fifth child.
And
Ken Yirbu Amen.
yeah, in a lot of ways, this episode is that this story which culminated with your incredible baby daughter. I think you should actually tell our listeners. We'll get up to it. What you named the child, but it's important that she's a part of this episode.
And I'll tell them
life.
how my neighbor made fun of me because I couldn't give a name because I had to have.
You need the Ruach HaKodesh.
Yeah, Ruach
you need
HaKodesh.
divine inspiration.
Yes.
I wanted to also say that what Ortal started off with about how she saw Israel, like leaving Israel as being a sin. She didn't only say it; it was lemaise. When we got married very young, right after the army, and
And how do you meet?
we met, we volunteered.
It's like the
It's not shidduch dating.
story.
No.
He was in the yeshiva or tzava. I was in Shirut.
She was after her first year of Shirut. I was
Between
after
the first
year
year
of
and the
Hesder.
second year, we went to volunteer in like a domestic abuse camp, and then we met. Like
It was
we-
in
we had
Dimona.
in
It was
Shlichut.
actually a very interesting camp because it was done with another a school, a mechina in Prat.
It's for
which
Hidabrut
was
ben
like
Dati v'Chiloni.
religious and secular.
Uh-huh.
So they were looking for religious people to come as well. So they got a few guys from Otniel, from my yeshiva. Ortal had a friend who went to that mechina, and we just randomly met, and that's where we 2 years started. We dated for 2 years, mostly through the army.
Mickey always wanted to go
Travel.
outside of Israel, and I said, no, I can't. It's a chet. You are not
I
allowed.
said, I said to Ortal,
You are not allowed.
Okay, I think it was very strong also because I said to Ortal, look, we don't have kids now. I want to do like the after post army.
Yeah.
Let's go. Travel, see the world. And she said, absolutely not.
You were
I'm
not
willing
interested.
to.
It's a chet. This is how.
That was her concept. And but more that, even at a certain point, I think I had to give a shir in my yeshiva. Someone asked. So I did a whole proper, the whole halachic sources about leaving Eretz Yisrael, pros, cons. I said to her, look, I actually vetted this. And I think if it's short term, it's okay. And she said to me, it doesn't matter. Because even if you give me a rabbi who says it's okay to go, I don't want to leave Eretz Yisrael.
Because that's real. The Yiddishkeit that emanates from here.
No, but I was also
you don't need the source.
Exactly.
But
it's so important for me to point out that for
Mickey
Tal.
came from Otniel. It's very gray. Everything is gray. You can discuss and you can find. And for me, life is black and white.
Yeah.
Either you are dosi or you're not. Either you put kisei rosh or you don't put kisei rosh. Either you're tanua, no, levels.
Yeah.
This is how you're supposed to be tanua. This is how. For
You've
me, I'm a
shifted
very
over the years,
yes, obviously because Baruch Hashem, my heart opened. So I'm saying when I left Israel to go to England, I was very arrogant. I was the superwoman who came to save the Jewish people there, and I'm much bitter. And I'm going to explain to them why they're making a chet.
Yeah.
Horrible. I
But
have
you
to
came
say.
in fire and brimstone.
Horrible, but Hashem decided something else for me, and I had some hard experience there. The move was very, very hard, and it took me a year to get back to myself. And I think it was from Hashem because it was such a slap that I got from Hashem that I was on my lowest,
Yeah.
איך אומרים את זה? lowest
state. Like
Ken,
you
yes,
were like depressed. You were-
that I had to build myself up with the community, and I couldn't understand how come I came to save them, and they're actually
And they're putting me back together.
saving me. The shlicha was supposed to be woo 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 woo, nothing, and everyone is like, Ortal, she's so strong, she will have friends. I had everything was perfect. It was from Hashem, and it was the most. I remember that when we left, I had like this speech that I gave that said, how come the most horrible experience that I have ever had in my life, it could end up very, very, very bad, turned out to be the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me, because it changed me completely. It made me humble. It made me open up to people outside of Israel to actually listen. Now I'm adoring them, and they're all like so tzaddikim that they're making aliyah, and it's so hard, and it's okay if it's hard for you, just stay. So like I'm much more,
Yeah,
and it
to understand.
made me להתחבר
to connect.
to the community from a low place and not from, and that's different.
I
Okay.
wanted to, like Ortal said, just to understand. So from one extreme, when we came back, I remember her, if somebody would dare say, like we came back to Israel, and then there would be people would say, oh, Chutzlar, the Jews who live
I
in
couldn't
Chutzlar.
speak with people.
Ortal would be like the biggest defender of Jewish who live outside of Israel. And to an extent that when we came back, we were looking for a community. We weren't sure where we were going to live when we returned. And we were looking for certain communities, and certain communities were not acceptable because they were too Israeli. And Ortal said, I don't want to go to a
can't.
community that's all Israeli anymore.
It's hard
So
for me.
think about the
because
mental
my
shift
heart
that she-
feels. I felt for them, because I had my most
You really fell
hard
in love
experience.
with-
It changed me. I know it was hard, and it could end up very, very bad, but it changed me completely. I built up a different personality. I'm still the same, but
You're passionate. You're deeply passionate. Still, we'll use
but
that.
this is a very power of Ortal. You
Yeah.
have to understand.
Yeah.
Before, I was a huge festival.
Yeah.
And for me, it opened up my heart, and I was mamash lucky to be able to be part of them, not as a person who came to lecture and show them the Geula, to be part of them. Like they will always, the community in England will always be part of my heart, because they helped me.
Get through it.
Yeah.
Really, really.
Yeah.
So when you came, were you serving in England in a rabbinic role?
No, we weren't an official.
We were the head of Bnei Akiva,
worked
so
with Bnei
our
Akiva.
role was to be very involved with the community and make sure, and maybe be part of the culture and activities, Jewish life.
See, one thing I wanted to highlight, and I want your thoughts on this, and I see this with a lot of shlichim, and I want to know if you experience this either in England or in America, is that the model of shlichim is like to send out like an educator. But in America or in the diaspora, the way we conceive of educators very often is like they're rabbis. So you could be kind of like a regular in Israel, but when you come
Yeah, for
to
sure.
the diaspora, you're seen through a rabbinic lens.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you experienced that or felt that like you're like fully regular, but like for some reason there's like a stronger divide outside of Israel between like the lay and the rabbi, and they need to categorize you. Which one are you?
Right.
Do you feel that? Because I felt that. Like,
Right. I never felt like I need the title. I had a funny story. So although we came in the Bnei Akiva as the youth movement, there was a school there, King David, one of the biggest Jewish school in Manchester. And we were asked at a certain point, there was a certain situation that we teach in the school. And then one of the head of the school said to me, "Oh, do you have smicha?" So I said, "No, I don't." So he says, "Okay, you're a rabbi now. It doesn't matter because officially they have to call you rabbi, right?" And I said, "Okay, so Rav Mickey." I was very relaxed. Like,
Gotcha.
no, you got to be Rav Flaumenhaft. Like they were
And
very.
that's what you were then.
And I was there for years. They called me Rav Flaumenhaft. Yeah.
and so
The
I was
students,
Mrs.
not my friends.
Flaumenhaft.
But we were also invited. I was invited several times to speak in shuls and communities not just about Israel. Also, it would be a traditional like shir or Dvar Torah. So I had, several. I was, I guess, seen in a certain way, although I never had the official title.
Meaning, I'm curious if you ever felt that people wanted to place rabbinic expectations on you that you never signed up for.
No, I don't. I think there was a clear distinction. There's there's the halachic figure.
Yeah.
But I think we did come, maybe as you're saying, as the people who come from Israel, you do have a certain message that you bring to us, and we want to hear. And I believe in it. Actually, I do think. I think people who learn in the Hesder yeshivas and in Israel, and who grew up in Israel, there is something inherently different in the way we look at things and the way we look at Torah even. And I think that on its own is a certain message that shlichim can bring.
What do you think that difference is? Because I've actually struggled with that. I think I grew up not fully understanding what the model of shlichut is trying to bring. I think I've learned to appreciate it much, much more deeply, but I'm curious, in your eyes, what do you think is the different brand of Yiddishkeit that you could remind non-Israeli Jewry of whether it's England or America? What is that distinction that you see is at the heart of the cultural difference of being dati in Israel and being religious outside of Israel?
But I think it's also different between England and America.
There are differences. There are differences also between England, which is interesting on its own. It's a different, I think, maybe for a different topic, to see for people for sure in Israel, it doesn't. Oh, you're England, America, it's all the same. You speak
Correct,
English.
yeah.
Oh, and we didn't, I think, fully understand. When I went to England, I thought they're very much like Americans, and discovered they're very much not like. And it's a lot of the culture. The culture has a big impact on everything. And it also looks on the lens, I think, we view things and on the way we learn Torah. And
But I want something specific.
So again,
I totally agree with you.
A lot of times, I actually gave a shir once. I had it was more than a shir, it was like a presentation, because I actually wanted to delve deep and understand, is there a difference between learning Torah in Israel and Chutz La'aretz, right? Because apparently there should be. And I looked from it also from an halachic source, but also from a cultural perspective.
Yeah.
And I think is actually when I came back to Israel. I remember this. I just came back. I found a new job. I left the whole education world for a bit. I was working in a tech company, and I was driving home, and it was a Friday, and it was listening to Galei Tzahal, secular, most common. Yeah, so there's Galgalatz and Galei Tzahal, and they had this famous singer Ehud Banai, which I don't know if everybody knows him, but Ehud Banai is very, the Banai family is the monarchy of culture in Israel. Evyatar, Ehud himself went through this interesting shift. He's not
a
exactly
religious awakening.
Exactly. He's not exactly a traditional
Spiritual.
Chazer B'Tshuva. So I was listening to this radio show, and Ehud Banai, and the way he's bringing some midrash or something like that, and then he puts on a jazz song, and you see the wider term of Torah, revealing itself, right? Not just reading something and giving some kind of Dvar Torah, really connecting. He's bringing, and I think there's a big, Besorah. What's the word? Besorah.
An announcement?
But more than an announcement. Besorah is a new calling that is coming from actually this shift with all these secular people who are becoming closer to Judaism and finding Judaism and bringing new interpretation. And you suddenly realize someone who doesn't understand Hebrew or doesn't how many of listeners know Ehud Banai, for example? My guess is not many, right? But there's a certain intimacy that you have with the language and that you have with Torah just through understanding Hebrew and understanding Israeli culture.
Through your own life.
Yeah. And then it all, it's something wow, this is Friday. I'm listening on Friday to a secular or whatever mixed kind of guy, performer who's giving me a Dvar Torah for Shabbat. If we're going to open the radio here and listen to that, what is,
the blend.
And it's happening on an Israeli radio station, which is not a religious radio station. And here I feel
you're getting to the very core of the difference between religious life in Israel and versus America, which is the interplay between the secular and religious communities, meaning the way that even their religious outlook kind of informs one another. There's influence. Is so much deeper in Israel than is in America. And America is much more, there are much more boundaries. Are much, like who's in, who's out is much clearer. In Israel, the continuum like slowly fades to black, It's hard to, and even being a binary, like you said, you're very binary in Israel. Israel doesn't have the same binary as America, like who's considered religious and who's considered not religious.
I'm just a very black and white person. So for me, there are rules and we should follow them. And obviously it's hard. It might be challenging. Might be there is a mitzvah that I relate more than the other. But for me, things are more like clearer.
Were you religiously judgmental in high school? Like, let's say, like in America, there are differences between, let's say, women who choose to cover their hair, don't cover their hair.
You ask if
wears
I was
pants, like women who wear pants, don't wear pants. And in the Orthodox community, for sure, in the modern Orthodox community, you have women who do both. And I'm curious, when you were growing up, was that a religious distinction that you were sensitive to?
Yeah, for me, yes. But I think it's me because, like, let's say we are very, very different. I need the ginunim, how you say the ginunim, to show that I'm religious. Like, I would
external expression.
Yeah, external expression. I would like to be seen as a person who is
very
like
clear.
Yes. And Mickey was always very more embracing and more understanding and more like gray. And there is the other saying this and the other saying that, but more of like to be, the limud, the Torah, the ruchani. Yes, because first I was young. I was very judgmental. For me, you should look this and that. And obviously, Baruch Hashem, by the years, I became more.
But let me catch up to where we are now. You have like a very moving and compelling story. You've been in Teaneck for
3 years.
Exactly.
This is our fourth
year. You were raising kids here. What are the things that you notice that you love the most about raising kids here, and what are the things you notice that are the most challenging, like that almost like it's hard for you because you're not raising Israeli
I wanted to give an
kids.
example though, actually. I think it connects to our previous message.
We just want to say that the fact that we are outside of Israel a second time is because we are people. We love being people. We are more of like positive, and we will not complain most of the time. Oh, it's not like in Israel. Oh, it's so different. Oh, Americans. Oh, this is not our style.
Yeah.
So we are mainly taking the positive things. This is our thing.
I'm curious what you notice. Like, what are the distinctions you notice?
So I think again, like when you talk about your religious experience, your religious life, when you live in Israel, Chagim is just part of your day-to-day life, right? You see it, everybody's celebrating Pesach or Rosh Hashanah. So here in Teaneck, of course, you'll feel it as well, but it's almost in Israel, you feel it in the air, right? Because it doesn't matter how secular you are. Everybody's sitting at the Seder table, right? And here you have to make an effort. And here it's funny because our youngest kids, you'll hear them talking about now trick or treat, right? We went to Simchat Torah in Ivry. Our little one was like, oh, trick or treat bags, right? And we used to get very scared, like, oh my gosh, look what's happening.
Yeah.
Suddenly Christmas, like which young kids in Israel, like people don't even know. Right now my kids are talking about it. They'll like notice the Christmas tree and talk about. And I think at the beginning we were very frightened from it. We're like, oh my, this is a sign, we got to get out of here. Like this is it, they're going to be assimilated.
I was very upset. I don't want to hear these words in my house. We are very different. This is how it was.
But now, right, so straight. But now we're just a little bit more relaxed, I think, in a certain, a lot of different ways. But when you talk about your Jewish life, and I look at it as an adult, so again, I think that has a huge impact because when something is just so natural, and I think for, again, example, a lot of my Chiloni friends, my secular friends in Israel, they don't need to define their Judaism by necessarily how much Torah I'm learning. They feel very Jewish, but in a different way. Here, you need to, if you don't go to shul, you're not going to be Jewish.
You're not going to feel it.
And a lot of secular Israelis have that experience. They're very scared from anything that smells Jewish in Israel because of all the political, what's going on. And then when they go to Chutz La'aretz, they suddenly have almost like a religious awakening. It's not even necessarily connected to God.
Your Israeli friends who are secular, when they come to America, they realize if if you don't put in some effort
Right.
into creating a Jewish identity, it will be fully lost.
Exactly. I'm not going to feel Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
And I won't feel it. And if I do, so where am I going to feel it? So it needs to be in a community, and it needs to be in a shul. And if that's what they're feeling, so of course our Jewish life here, what American Jewry has built is these, like, I don't know if we call them the walls, but these very clear, boundaries. And this is where we experience Judaism. And then what's outside of Judaism, is it part of Judaism or is it not? Okay, that's maybe our secular life, and it doesn't have that natural blend that I was speaking about earlier.
It's so interesting you say that. I spoke once to a parent of an 1840 listener who's dealing with, like an intermarriage issue. And I remember telling this parent the difficulty, because this was an Israeli parent. And I said the difficulty of playing by Israeli rules in America. We talk a lot about playing by American rules in Israel, but you can't play by Israeli rules in America, or religiously you could get really lost.
Right.
You get really, really lost. I want to catch up to really the moment that we're meeting now, in this moment now, October 7th. You have a very unusual story on October 7th.
Not unusual for every other Israeli. We are not special. Maybe it's unusual here. No, we are not special.
But the unusual story, if you allow me to set it up, you were in Israel, your oldest son's bar mitzvah for Sukkot when October 7th happened.
He was born in Simchat Torah. So his bar mitzvah mamash in Simchat Torah.
Yeah.
And
October 7th was his bar mitzvah.
Simchat Torah, not October 7th.
Okay.
Simchat Torah.
Simchat Torah.
Yeah. Kaf Bet Tishrei.
And you decided to go to Gaza. You were in there.
Joined my unit.
And you joined your unit, and you returned with your family to Teaneck. Now, the reason why it is unique is because most Israelis who are all in this, they're living in a community where every family's husband, kids, has people. You, and I think this is quite unique, were living in Teaneck, where most people, we're connected, we're sending packages, but we were not in it in the same way. And when you're looking at other women, they're not looking at the same thing that they're living through. You were living through something very, very different than everybody here. And I want to begin with just the decision. Was it a question whether or not he was going to
No.
stay
It
in
wasn't.
Gaza?
It wasn't. We didn't discuss it. I've been noticed by him that he's
informed
leaving.
her.
The entire bar mitzvah, he was like in al kotzim.
I was
He
on
was
an
like,
edge
what?
to
Yeah.
join my
what?
unit already.
What am I doing here? Like I have to be in Gaza. Yeah. And
For you, it was instinctive.
Well, look, October 7th happened. We were in Israel. It took us time to understand what was unfolding. We didn't hear sirens in the Shomron, so took us a while to understand fully understand what was going on. Motzei Shabbat, my unit actually got called up later that night, but it was very clear to me that this was catastrophic. Like I came home from shul, and Ortal woke up and she said to me, "Hey, how's it going?" And she saw my face and she said, "What happened?" And I said, "I don't know what happened, but I think this is worse than Yom Kippur." Like that was my sense. So
and I said, "Ma pitom, it's Yeshuv. We like gossip. We like action.
Yeah.
Right.
There's
So
no
they're
chance
just
there
people
are
are
tanks
making
and
things
bodies
up.
on the street. It doesn't make sense." And I said, "We have the army. Like there is no chance something like that will happen."
So, of course, to Mayan, my son, our son, although he was born on Simchat Torah, he was actually laning the following week, the Bereshit.
He asked to do Bereshit.
He wanted to lane, and then we said, okay, so what happens this week with all the bar mitzvah
We
plans?
can't cancel it at the very beginning because we all thought that
canceled
we are going to die,
everything.
right?
We said there was complete, shock, and then, but from that Motzei Shabbat where my unit got called up, I was like, what am I doing here? That was my first, I can't stay here.
He was very upset that we even need to
I need to join
wait,
them.
that he needs to wait.
I immediately called them. I called look, I've been doing Miluim for 17 years. My last role was actually being the guy who calls everybody up in the unit. So I called the one who replaced me, and I said to him, it was 10 a.m. on Sunday, October 8th. So I said, Igal, I'm here. What's going on? Like, where are we? So he said, how'd you get here so quickly? Like, he knew people were already flying. I said, no, I happen to be here. So he actually said, are you sure you want to come? I said, what do you mean? I didn't understand what he was asking. He's like, look, we know you don't live here now. You're in the States. Maybe don't be the first. I couldn't even understand what he was asking. Like, to me, it almost insulted me. Like, of course I'm going to come. But he did say, like, look, they weren't positioned even yet. So he's like, take a few days and like understand what's going on. I was able to help them in other ways, gear and assist them. And that Thursday night, so we're talking about the week, following immediately October 7th, I drove down south. It was horrific because you just see like, you're driving down, you're in a war zone, right? We're talking about way before Gaza. I'm like, it's the road area. And I met my unit and I got them all these, they didn't have equipment. So I was able to get a hand on a lot of equipment and gear they needed. And the minute I saw them, it was like almost clear to me. I was like, no one even asked me. It wasn't like, oh, are you joining? Are you coming? It wasn't clear to them what you're doing. I spoke to my Mempei, who I was like his second in command, Matan, very close with. And I said, Matan, I'm thinking of staying. And he said to me, look, I won't be upset if you stay. I won't be, He didn't put any pressure on. It was very nice of them.
And what's coursing through your veins? Like, why were you so certain?
I couldn't imagine myself just now leaving my country, or my friends, even more so, that are fighting or going to be fighting on the front lines. And we didn't know, again, we got moved, we went into Gaza about a month later in, but I almost felt like I'm betraying them if I would leave. And again, it's not a simple decision because you have a family and 4 children at the time, 4 now, Baruch Hashem, 5. And again, we were engaged in 2006 when the Second Lebanon War came out. So I was a commander in the Second Lebanon War. So Ortal, I think she was laughing because she said, I've been through this already.
I said,
experience.
I've done. I did check. I did enough. And
there were other operations.
I'm not doing it again. I planned our wedding by myself. He went straight from Lebanon to our wedding. So I had enough. I'm not brave. This is not for me. I've done it once. I did check and I need to move on. And
in the back of her mind, I think she also said to me once, like when we moved here, she was like, okay, if anything happens, like you're here now. You're not going back if anything happens. I think there was even like a discussion like that. And we came back. We did have a sort of an intimate celebration for our family for Mayan's bar mitzvah because we needed. It was actually
small. It was actually very special because we thought it's going to be small, but it was already a week into the war, and people felt that this is our nitzachon. So people wanted to celebrate big. We celebrated big because they felt if our families and kids was killed, our nitzachon is to celebrate life for them. So it was very meaningful. The entire year, I was worried that my son won't do enough shlichut and Torah, and how will he have a meaningful year? And we did everything we could. He learned, he did siyum, he did itnadvut, everything. And then we were very lucky. We had a zchut to have like a bar mitzvah, not just a private simcha. It was Am Israel simcha.
I'll also say it was very special for our immediate family. My nephew, my brother-in-law, they were all called out.
They all left.
We had a lot of women who didn't have their husbands. So for them, they said they all came to us and said, "Thank you for having this family togetherness." Yeah. This is the first week you're at Shabbat, and we so much needed that. And it was beautiful because we had a lot of them also speak, on behalf of the families. It was very, very meaningful. I'm remembering now, you asked how I felt, and I didn't plan my Dvar Torah for Mayan's bar mitzvah. And I said, we just read about Parashat Bereshit, the murder of Cain and Hevel, and he says Hashem goes to, Cain. He says, and we were already at that point. Am I my brother's keeper? And I said to him, we're already at that point, like revealed to. I literally have chills. Like I have certain friends who were killed on October 7th. A guy from my pluga, Yedidia, he lived in Kerem Shalom. He was on the first response team. He was killed. Elchanan Kalmanzon, friend from Otniel, drove down south, gave up his life, sacrificed his life to save over 100 people in Be'eri. And I said, this is like the calling. Of course, we're my brother's keeper. People who are saving other people's lives without knowing them. And so deep down in me, I'm saying, of course, I'm not leaving. And it's going to be hard. And we didn't even know. In my mind, I was saying, okay, I've been to war. Lebanon was about, 4 weeks, maybe the whole thing in total. Wars have an end. We ended up being there over 3 months, and we didn't expect that.
When you said goodbye, Do you think about what could be? Like, do you get
I think we were all shocked. I was driving like as if I just have to keep up to be like strong. This is why I say I never want to hear what Mickey had in Lebanon too. He has speeches that he gives. He has.
You don't want to know.
I don't want to know just because
you don't
I know.
Think about it.
No, because he will go to probably more operations or wars. And if I know exactly what is going on there,
the risk,
and he could get killed, then I won't be able to manage and function the next time. So I know nothing about Lebanon. I'm a very person that I have to know everything, and I'm on top of things, and I'm very organized, and I know everything. This I'm planning as if I'm a bit stupid. Like Mickey will tell me, I say, is it safe or not safe? Will you die? No, it's fine. Or he's very chill. It's fine, and I'll go and I'll be happy. Okay, it's fine, because I have zero knowledge. Like I'm blocking my mind. I'm blocking myself, and I'm a person that for my anxiety I need to know everything.
And was it obvious that you were going to come back to Teaneck, stay in Israel?
Yeah, of course. Because
you were going to come back and
first
live your
because
life.
I wanted to go to my work, Baruch Hashem in school, Yeshivat Atid, and it's very fulfilling, and I feel very happy there. So I thought if when you give, you feel very empowered, and then I could have my happy life, and my kids will be in routine. We thought it might be good to stay, but then no routine, no school, no nothing, and how will I keep them busy? What will we be thinking? We will be thinking more. So to be back was, I think, the right decision.
I think a lot of times we were very lucky in a way. At the end, she had to come back because our life is centered here, and our kids, how long could they stay in Israel?
With no misgeret.
Right.
And emotionally during that time,
zero emotions for me. Zero. I blocked everything. Yeah, I'm strong.
You hunkered down a little bit. You didn't go out as much during that time. Did you eat out
I was even, more so sociable. Usually I like my, but no, I was almost every Shabbat out here.
Really?
Yeah, because people wanted.
And it didn't bother you sitting at a meal. Everybody's talking about
at the very
yada, and you have a husband who is at war.
No, I'll tell you why. Because before October 7th, I didn't find the American community so Zionist. I find it very hard because in England, obviously, the Jewish community is much smaller.
Yes,
so
they take it more seriously.
It's a close-knit community. Jewish life is very important. People from Israel is like gods, and Bezrat Hashem, they will all make Aliyah. This is the talk. We will make Aliyah. When I came here, I was very surprised. First, you are in Israel, you are not special. Second, you have beautiful Jewish life here. Why do you need to go to Israel? It's actually true. So I find it very hard. I wasn't very appreciative to the community. I found it
initially.
Look, we were, remember, in England, we were the shlichim of Bnei Akiva. Here, we didn't come on official shlichut.
Correct. So
we came in,
we have our Baruch Hashem very
representing Israel, but
sociable
there's no
life.
Bnei Akiva concept here, right?
Like our life here, we build our sociable life from our personalities. In England, it was because we are from Israel, so we are very special. We are very important.
Yeah.
Everything is about Israel.
Okay.
And here it's like
we're in Israel for Sukkot.
No, it's like we can be. Zionism wasn't the talk here. It
wasn't.
Yeah, I was very
100%.
upset about it.
And
you're very
Teaneck.
upset. I was very, very upset, and I didn't feel. I said it's a different community. It's different. It's not this. Everything is about the community in England. The community in England is so close. It's so caring. It's Israel, Israel, Israel. And I think after October 7th,
there was a
completely shift.
You felt that.
Oh my gosh! People started to speak about Israel, about what the relationship between me and Israel, what it means for me to be Jewish. It means that my life is staying here, or Jewish might be in Israel, the future of my kids. So for me,
But they're having real conversations now.
Yeah, when I was there, first I'm a fun person. Like I'm not, sitting down. And also, people were always very appreciative, and it became a very close-knit community. I've never seen the community here like that.
I've noticed it as well. And
it was so special.
There's an authenticity that people see in you now that they didn't initially appreciate that. Like, actually, for all the Teaneck talks about Zionism, we spoke about Zionism before October 7th, but there's a real appreciation of what the life of Israel, how much it enhances and informs, I think, our own values here in Teaneck. They complement each other very beautifully.
It's beautiful what the community have shown. I think people is asking me, how do you cope? How do you do? I said, I think I'm very lucky and very, very blessed to be here. I know it was very hard that I was, in a different country than Mickey, because when people had, some, breaks and to go to see the families, we never had that. So for 3 months
friends
in a row,
my unit, we didn't have
used
a
to
lot
go
of
every
breaks,
three
but they would get a 24-hour. And again, when we saw this was extending, some friends came up to me in Gaza, they're like, why are you still here? I was like, what do you mean? Why would I go?
I don't have
and
anywhere to go.
And they said, no, well, you don't have even that 24-hour break to go see your kids. We were actually even talking about maybe flying in for a weekend, but I said to them, guys, I'm here till the end. When my next out is to Ben Gurion, fly back to the family. But I do want to give out a big shout out to the community here, because we were very blessed. They
very blessed.
I think we have the greatest community
country
in the
club
United States.
specifically, but Teaneck amazing.
It's from October 7th.
The way they took care of Ortal and the kids on so many levels, it was amazing, and it gave me, and which was very different when we were, talking about Lebanon. We were 20, 21, without kids, engaged. There's a very different sense of responsibility when you're in the front lines and you have a family distant and, behind, and what you might be sacrificing. And also an interesting point about Teaneck and what Ortal said, their interest in Zionism, it hit the streets here, right? They're suddenly, they're dealing, the Palestinian protests,
I see
which happened in
time.
England 10 years ago in Protective Edge, which we also experienced. Now it's happening here. So there's that feeling of oh, it's right in my backyard. And also, but people come to us all the time. Suddenly I've become the expert on almost every Israeli political. So when are they releasing the hostages? They ask because there's a real interest. That wasn't pre-October 7th,
No, but I feel very, very blessed. People used to ask me, do they feel it? Do they know anything about it? And I'm again, becoming very defending. What do you mean? Did you even know, all the duffel bags and all the equipment and all the gear for Chayalim? So
You're sticking up for America now.
Yeah, again, because I was mamash annoyed. Don't you? Baruch Hashem, I was blessed again. This is why we were here, second time outside of Israel. After our heart was open to the Jewish people outside of Israel, I felt like I want to do it again. First, I love to meet new people. And I said, I want to be again in a Jewish community outside of Israel. But I was blessed to be during the war, because I was so surrounded with the community in hard times, and this is much more meaningful. The community were beyond everything that I could ever imagine. So I was on the border between Israel and America, the Jewish people. And what my kids saw, this is the message that we wanted our kids to experience.
And it's the perfect segue to really the guest star who this episode is all about, and that's the baby that you've been holding in your hands. You had a baby 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. And we would always tease, because when Tova asked you, after the first Shabbos or whatever, so what did you name the baby? You said, no, I'm waiting for my divine inspiration.
No, first we call her Gaza baby. She was born in a year that very it's significant to Eretz Israel. And when I said Baruch Hashem, we had a baby girl. And people in the same text that they said Mazal Tov, they also asked, what's her name? And I showed it to Mickey and I said, what's going on?
This could be not all Israelis. We might be unique in that sense, that we take our time.
But
the Americans
the same day,
but
they were shocked that it was 48 hours.
No, they said, Ortal, you had the entire pregnancy to think about it. I said, no, but when she's out, then I have a different Ruach HaKodesh. Maybe I was planning, but she doesn't look like the name that I wanted. People were shocked. They couldn't even understand. And I said, I'm not sure yet. And then people said, I have a very good friend that wrote to me, what do you mean? I'm very confused. And I was confused. I said, what's going on? Relax with the name. It's fine. And then we said, because we have to have a name that will
capture this
B'diuk. So we called her Aniam Nesia, Aniam, because we felt like this is, Baruch Hashem, we are very blessed to be part of Am Yisrael, but to be part of Am Yisrael outside of Israel.
Part of the entirety of the Jewish people.
Nachon. Ani Am.
I am the people.
And Nesia, because
So
Nes is like miracle of
Miracle of
Hashem.
Hashem. So we had, again, that individualism is about, I think a lot of Jewish people have sparked their Jewishness, and we don't want to cancel that individualism, but at the same time, they're part of a people. I think that maybe sums up everything we've been speaking about. The connection between diaspora Jews. Yeah, we want that individuality, but we're all one people. So Ani Am, and that really is highlighted this year. So we felt that was the name, and we love we think it's a beautiful name. And Nesia is also, it's been a very tough year and hard, but a lot of miracles have happened. And and we just pray that will continue.
Honestly, Tova and I talk constantly of the miracle of our friendship relationship. We didn't know anybody when we moved to this community. Our next door neighbors were actually like cult leaders. They were like for real crazy who lived before you. So they used to live like Scientology pamphlets.
We still get them. I still get them in the mail.
And now our three houses that like
Baruch Hashem, we have kibbutz
it's
here.
like a kibbutz,
Yeah,
like
Nachon.
on Shabbos.
We are very
It is
lucky.
Such a joy.
People are going to come make Aliyah to our kibbutz.
It means so much to me that you joined. We're able to speak today, and you really capture that sentiment of aniyam, of being able to hold the entirety of the Jewish people in your hearts, which is why I think we connect, and I admire you so much.
We feel very, very blessed. We feel very, very lucky that our kids and us. I told you I was 100% Israeli. I used to make fun of people with an accent.
You're a cookie.
Yeah, mamash. I was not nice. And now I feel like this is so special that I feel part of Am Israel, the diaspora, and Eretz Israel.
I always end my interviews with more rapid fire questions. These are chick-chock, 1, 2, 3. I know you're limited on time. My first question is there a book, a sefer, that instilled your love or helped cultivate your love for the Jewish people, that Ani Am sentiment? Is there a writer that captures that for you?
Oh, wow. I need another second to think about that.
You were just making fun of me, but you have to start reading a book every Shabbos.
Yes, David, I'm a very active, very hyper person. Books are slowing me down, so...
So you can sit this one out. Do you have a recommendation?
There's two books that are coming to mind, but there was
Rabbi
something
Sachs is like
Rabbi
one
Sachs,
of your-
but I think I'm a big fan of Rabbi Sachs and his translation. I actually read it in Hebrew, a translation.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yes, and Heal a Fractured World is one of my
And it captures
favorite.
it, the Hebrew. You read Rabbi Sachs in Hebrew. Oh, that's
Yes.
We
Heal a
were
Fractured
zoche
World.
to be with Rabbi Sachs when he
in
had his
England.
in England.
In England.
We were much
I think-
lucky.
Yes, I have a very interesting connection also with him, and I'm a big follower. And you know what? I wasn't even thinking about that direction. I was thinking a different direction. But Rabbi Sachs, although he was again a Jew who lived in Chutz La'aretz, his Hebrew, when he spoke in Hebrew, he never came through.
Yeah.
But I think his messages about
he captured and connected that.
very much. That first book that I read, Heal a Fractured World, I quote many stories from it a lot of time, and he talks about the Jewish people and our mission. And I think.
My next question, I'm curious, if somebody gave you a great deal of money and allowed you to take a sabbatical, a vacation for as long as you needed, but you have to go back to school and get a PhD. You have to study one topic in depth. What do you think the subject and title of your dissertation would be? What do you think you'd write about? What would you want to study?
Me now?
Yeah.
Medicine.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, medicine or psychology. Yeah.
Psychology.
Psychology. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not up. I was never a learned guy.
So I'm very,
Not in the
very,
academic
very,
world.
like for me, the fact that I don't have second degree,
Your master's.
yeah, I feel very embarrassed because I'm very, I'm a big learner.
That's my final question. I'm always curious about people's sleep schedules. What time do you go to sleep at night, and what time do you wake
Oh my
up in
gosh,
the
we
morning?
are.
I could probably know this because
Because I was going to say, you see when we turn off the lights.
There was
we
a-
know.
You at 2 a.m.
We should wave to each other.
At first, now it's a bit different because the kids and everything, but I am a very, very morning person. Very, very morning, and Mickey is more of a late night. But this is the way that we were raised by our families.
Same.
It's also a different cultural difference.
That's why we get along so well. Tove was like you, and I'm like Mickey. Mickey and Ortal, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
joining
so
us
much.
today.
Thank
David. It
you.
was a pleasure.